Hello, I'm Parker Johnstone. Looking back over the history of the sports car, we can pinpoint when most of the big advances in technology occurred. As examples, overhead camshafts, fuel injection, and disc brakes each had far-reaching impact. Sports cars take advantage of technology, but they have something more. They're designed with passion. There have been many good sports cars, but only a few great ones, inspired ones. Great sports cars are the cars you want to drive just for fun, just for the thrill of the drive. Great sports cars have balance. The engine, chassis, suspension, and brakes operate as a precise system. Tailoring these ingredients to complement each other is a challenge. Getting it right results in a better, more capable automobile. And speaking of capable, I've enjoyed putting the S2000 through its paces. It's a great roadster, just what you would expect from Honda. We're going to take a look at the strengths and weaknesses of cars in the same market segment as the S2000. Honda's racing achievements are legendary and influenced the S2000 heavily. The three major competitors, the Porsche Boxster, BMW Z3, and Mercedes SLK, also come from companies with strong racing histories. Lessons learned on the track can be seen in each of these cars, but it's how these lessons are applied that makes the difference. Let's start our comparison with the Porsche Boxster.
The Porsche Boxster is a very popular sports car and is considered the toughest competition for the Honda S2000. One of the Boxster's strong points is its appearance. Its styling reflects links to earlier Porsches, especially the Speedster models. The Boxster engine is a water-cooled flat six, producing 201 horsepower and redlining at 6,500 RPM. This compares with the S2000's 240 horsepower and a redline that raises the standard to an impressive 9,000 RPM. The Boxster is available with an automatic transmission, but most are ordered with the 5-speed manual, while the S2000 is equipped with a close-ratio 6-speed manual transmission as standard equipment. The S2000's wheelbase is about an inch shorter than the Boxster's. The S2000 is 10 inches shorter in length and slightly narrower than the Porsche, and the two cars are the same height. Curb weights for the S2000 and Boxster are virtually identical, and they are the lightest cars in our comparison group. Both the Boxster and S2000 have power-operated convertible tops. To stow the Boxster's cloth top, a center latch mechanism is first released. The Porsche top stows itself in about 20 seconds, disappearing beneath a motorized panel. In contrast, the S2000 top retracts in about 6 seconds. The Boxster's interior is attractively laid out and upholstered in leather. Its instrumentation is all analog with black and white faces. Porsche cars have used this theme since the mid-60s. The S2000's digital instrumentation emulates current Formula One instrumentation, with vital information displayed in an organized high-visibility form. The driver's seat in the Boxster slides on an angled ramp to alter its height and distance from the steering wheel. The seatback angle has a power adjustment. The S2000's driver's seat is upholstered in special ventilated leather. It is manually adjustable in 4 directions for better driver comfort.
The Porsche Boxster. I've got to tell you, there are a lot of things about this car that I like. And in evaluating the Boxster, I got a real sense of Porsche's racing past. Now, looking at the interior, the first thing that I noticed that I didn't like was the lack of support in the seat. There is some upper body support, but there's absolutely none for your legs. That took a lot of fun out of the driving because as I was aggressively cornering, my body was being slammed from side to side. The fit and finish is nice, but a lot of people find the interior a little quirky in its layout, difficult to decipher and find a lot of the controls. The ignition key is on the left-hand side, and the center console doesn't just come easily to hand. The thing I did like was the way the analog dash is laid out. You've got the speedometer on the left-hand side and the fuel gauge and engine temperature gauge on the right-hand side, taking a secondary role to the large center displayed tachometer, and that just speaks volumes about racing and high-performance driving.
The Boxster's mid-engine layout provides more plentiful storage options than typically found in a sports car. Both front and rear trunks are available. Additional storage can be found in the door panels, glove box, and center console. Engine access is limited to a pair of fluid fill tubes and a dipstick handle located in the rear trunk. In contrast, the S2000 engine compartment is impressive and well detailed. The Boxster shifter is connected to the transmission with cables, causing an imprecise feel. In comparison, the S2000 shifter mechanism is integral to the transmission, providing direct, precise actuation.
We're in the Porsche Boxster. Let's take it for a few laps and see what it feels like. I really like the interior design and layout, the fit and finish. It's very roomy. Steering wheel is a little large in comparison to some of the competitors' cars, but it feels natural after a few laps. The shifter's in the correct place. The linkage is a little bit vague because of the cable shifting, especially in comparison to the S2000. But even that vagueness I could learn to live with. But the power, I did a number of roll-ons from 20 to about 60 miles an hour, hoping for more, and it just wasn't there. If this car had more horsepower, not only would the chassis be a little better balanced, but it would give you that high performance feeling, and unfortunately it's lacking it right when you want it most at the top end of the power band. At low to medium speeds, the Porsche feels very solid, and I don't mean heavy the way the Mercedes SLK feels, but one that gives you confidence. But as the speed increases and you get the car right on the limit, the car becomes unpredictable. In fact, sometimes the car reacts too quickly. You can be in a high-speed, quick transitional corner, and the car will turn too much for the amount of input. It has a trait that's very, very unkind. Trailing throttle oversteer. You lift off the throttle, and the back of the car steps out just like that. One of the things you notice about the Boxster is the cowl shake. That is, the bodywork rattles a little bit as you drive it. The faster you drive it, the more uneven the pavement surface, the more you notice it. Now, in comparison, the S2000 has advanced manufacturing techniques which prevent this cowl rattle that you see with the Porsche. It's one of those subtle differences you notice between make to make. It's not something that really bothers me as I'm driving the car, but it is something that you do notice. One of the things that Porsches are known for are their great brakes, and the Boxster is no exception. It gives you great feel, the ABS kicks in just when you think it should, and overall gives the driver a lot of confidence. They've been able to take the same braking qualities of their high-performance 911 series cars and race cars and build that same feeling into the Porsche Boxster.
According to Road & Track magazine, the Boxster can stop from 60 miles per hour in 120 feet. That almost equals the performance of the S2000, which stops from the same speed in 118 feet. The Boxster employs a modified McPherson strut suspension, while the S2000 features an in-wheel double wishbone suspension. Let's sum up our comparison between the S2000 and the Porsche Boxster. The S2000 is more fun to drive, has more horsepower, has better handling, and a race car feel. The S2000's interior offers digital instrumentation, better seating, and a faster top mechanism.
Most of these points will be very important to any customer looking for maximum performance and world-class features. On almost any level, the S2000 looks better in a direct comparison. We've seen the Boxster compared with the Honda S2000. Now let's take a close look at the next challenger, the BMW Z3 Roadster.
The Z3 is another popular car in this segment. It's based on BMW's 3 Series platform. Most magazines report that this car sells more because of its looks than its performance. The Z3 is powered by a 2.8-liter inline 6-cylinder engine. The engine is known for its wide power band. It produces 193 horsepower, almost 50 less than the S2000 engine. Its level of sophistication is well behind the technology found in the S2000. BMW offers the Z3 with a 5-speed manual transmission as standard equipment. Dimensions for the Z3 are similar to the other cars in this group. Its wheelbase is 96.3 inches. The car is about 4 inches shorter and 1 inch narrower than the S2000. And they're approximately the same height. At 2,870 pounds, the BMW weighs 61 pounds more than the S2000. The Z3 has a standard manual top, requiring the driver to exit the car for its storage. The retracted top stows behind the seat. The interior of the Z3 features leather seating and trim. The steering wheel rim is covered in leather. Z3 instrumentation is all analog, with simple black bezels molded in plastic. The Z3 provides storage in the door panels, glove box, and console compartment. The Z3 seats have adjustable backs and slide on an angled ramp to alter their height and distance from the steering wheel. The seats have minimal lateral support for the driver, while the S2000 seating provides proper upper and lower side bolsters for outstanding support.
The BMW Z3. When I first drove the car, I noticed one big problem. That's the seats. You know, you've got to be held in place because this is the driver's office. In order to get full enjoyment out of the car, you can't be thrashing back and forth inside as you're aggressively cornering. The problem is there's no side bolsters for your upper body, none for your legs, and I oftentimes had to brace myself with my knees and elbows. It was very uncomfortable, takes all the enjoyment out of driving. Now, if you're familiar with the 3 Series and 5 Series BMWs, the interior will look quite the same analog gauges across the front. We have the same heater controls and ventilation controls, all very, very familiar. Remember, a sports car is supposed to be a little different, a little aggressive, exciting. This car, and there's nothing wrong with the 3 Series or 5 Series BMWs, but they're sedans. This is supposed to be a high-performance sports car. And in this department, the interior layout, it really doesn't get the job done. The BMW has good throttle response, lots of mid-range torque and top-end horsepower. One of the things I notice immediately is the shift knob itself is a little too large, the linkage is a little vague, and the pedals aren't laid out properly for heel and toe downshifting, which means that you have to fumble a little bit in order to find the right revs in order to match shifts on the way down. Car has a nice solid feel under braking, good pedal feel, nice solid pedal pressure. Car turns into the corner well, and it's actually pretty well balanced. It's a little nervous right on the edge, but the car gives you plenty of warning of what it's going to do. In the high-speed slalom, the car feels very stable in mid-range speeds, although there is a lot of roll, especially at the back of the car. But as the speed increases, the car really steps out with trailing throttle oversteer. In a high-performance quick maneuver, if you came off the throttle quickly, you could turn this car right around. Really, my number one complaint of the BMW is just the amount of roll, not only into cornering, but also braking and under acceleration. As I squeeze the brakes on, the car really dives, the nose moving a lot. It's a little disconcerting, but once into the corner, applying the power really helps balance the chassis. All in all, it's not what I would expect from a high-performance roadster.
According to Road and Track magazine, the Z3 can stop from 60 miles per hour in 123 feet. That's not as good as the S2000's 118-foot performance in the same test.
And one of the things I noticed is that as you roll into the corner, especially in right-hand turns, the rearview mirror is exactly where you need to look. That's a bit of a problem because if you can't see the corner, how do you get to it?
Let's summarize this comparison between the S2000 and the Z3. The S2000 has more horsepower, is built with higher technology, has better brakes, and better handling with less body roll. The S2000's interior offers digital instrumentation and much better seating.
Again, most of these points will be very important to any customer looking for maximum performance and world-class features. Now let's take a look at the next challenger, the Mercedes SLK Roadster.
Most of the magazines agree that the Mercedes SLK is one of the best-looking convertibles on the market. The SLK is built on the current Mercedes C-Class platform, which accounts for its hefty weight. The Mercedes is powered by a 2.3-liter four-cylinder engine with a compressor or supercharger. Surprisingly, the engine is rated at only 185 horsepower, down 55 from the S2004, which makes more power with less displacement and without a supercharger. Although supercharging usually improves an engine's torque, the SLK's weight presents a serious challenge to its engine. The SLK used in this comparison is equipped with a 5-speed automatic transmission. A 5-speed manual is also available. The SLK has the same wheelbase as the S2000 and is 5 inches shorter. The car's width and height are within an inch of the S2000's dimensions. The SLK is the heaviest car in our comparisons, weighing 216 pounds more than the S2000. The SLK is noteworthy for the operation of its retractable steel top. Its mechanism contains several motors that stow the top in about a minute. The SLK interior is upholstered in leather, laid out in a fashion similar to the Mercedes C-Class sedan. The SLK's leather seats provide little in the way of support for energetic driving. There are no side bolsters and only minimal lumbar support, while the sport design seats in the S2000 provide full lateral and lumbar support. The SLK provides storage in the doors, the glove box, and in the console. Both the SLK and S2000 are equipped with cup holders. The SLK's holder pulls out from the center of the dash pad. In the Honda, the cup holder is molded into the console. It can double as storage for small items. Mercedes SLK instrumentation is analog, with small digital displays in the speedometer and tachometer, telling time and temperature. S2000 instrumentation is modeled after current Formula One displays.
The first thing I noticed while evaluating the interior of the Mercedes SLK was how little side support there was for the upper body and the lower body. Now for a driver, support's everything, because if you have to hang on while you're driving, you get distracted, you can't fully enjoy the handling characteristics of the car. The second thing that I noticed was sort of the contradiction between the chrome bezel analog gauges of 1950s and carbon fiber inserts, which are through the kick panels and through the center console section of the Mercedes. This, for me, is, although a very subjective evaluation, is very confusing as to whether the car wants to be a car of the past or a car of the future. The thing that I did like about the Mercedes is that the seating position itself is correct. The steering wheel falls right at hand, as does the shift lever, and the brake and throttle pedal are in the correct positions. But once out on the track, the shifter created a lot of problems. Being an automatic, it was difficult to have it in the right gear at the right time. Therefore, you don't have the throttle response you need to help balance the car. And throttle response is everything, especially coming off a corner in a car that bills itself as a high-performance roadster. The biggest problem with the Mercedes SLK is the 5-speed automatic. It's not intuitive. You're always trying to find gears, and a lot of times the electronic control is overriding your desires of trying to get the power band in the right area so you can most effectively use the engine. And oftentimes, because it's so light in feel and the detents are so imprecise, it's easy to skip a gear, not find the gear that you want, and that just ruins the driving experience. For example, now, I'm at full throttle and the car just won't kick down a gear. It just won't accelerate. But it's also a little bit nervous on the limit. Once you try to get the car into the corner, the back end will start to rotate a little bit, but it's difficult to feel exactly where that edge is, and it's easy to overstep the boundaries. You know, great sports cars are supposed to be nimble, quick to react. You and the car should be one, so when you squeeze on the brakes, roll into the corner, the car responds. Well, the problem with the Mercedes SLK is that it feels like a much heavier sedan. There's a lot of body roll. It makes for an imprecise feel, and therefore you lack confidence. The compressor makes a lot of noise, which is a little disconcerting, and it's not a horsepower sound. It's not that exhaust note of a sports car, but rather one it's rather annoying. Although the brakes are good, it doesn't have the crispness of the S2000 under braking.
The Mercedes features 4-wheel disc brakes. Road and Track magazine stated that the SLK stops from 60 miles per hour in 120 feet. Let's sum up our comparison between the S2000 and the Mercedes. The Honda has these advantages. The S2000 is faster and more powerful, with better handling, a better transmission, and superior brakes. Inside, the S2000 provides digital instrumentation and better seating. And now let's watch as Parker takes a lap in the S2000.
Oh, I'm at home. I love this car. Well, we're on board with the S2000, and the first thing you notice is you're nestled down inside the cockpit, and because it supports your body so well, it leaves your hands, arms, and legs free to manipulate the controls, which is of incredible importance to get the most out of the vehicle. One of the things I look for in a high-performance car is its transitional response. We're going through a high-speed slalom now, and what's really very important in a car of this design is to know what the front of the car is doing at all times. The S2000's steering is very precise, gives the driver instantaneous feedback, but I think where the S2000 really shines is the balance of the chassis. The car responds to every input of the driver. There's very little body roll. It communicates immediately what it's doing as it goes through the corners, and it responds to every input that the driver makes. It gives you that feel that you think about entering a corner and the car does it. It's very intuitive to drive. You're not distracted by a poorly laid out cockpit or an engine that's not with you as you're trying to get the power on. At about 7,000 RPM, you instinctively start to reach for the shift lever, but the party's just starting. Between 7,000 and 9,000 RPM, the VTEC kicks in, and you have all kinds of top-end power. Always puts a big smile on my face. And I don't know of another car in any class that goes to 9,000 RPM redline, and the S2000 does it shift after shift after shift. Speaking of shifts, the gearbox is fantastic. It's one of my favorite features of the car. The shift lever falls right in place in hand, very quick, precise throws. It becomes very intuitive to shift gears. You're never hunting. It's not vague like some of the S2000's competitors, and it gives it that race car feel. For several reasons, the S2000 really stands out in this crowd. First of all, it's more like driving a race car than any of the others that we've looked at today. Second, the S2000 brings together a host of high technologies working together in that special way that makes for a great sports car. And third, the S2000 is a Honda, which means that you'll get the same quality, value, and dependability that your customers have come to expect from every Honda vehicle. Well, that about wraps it up for the S2000 competitors. You've got a great roadster to sell. Good luck on your mission.